finally, if we talk about EU enlargement, we have to face with the public opinion in all those countries. In the last few years, we're aware that it's kind of enlargement fatigue. And it's very hard to say that it's huge level of enthusiasm around Europe for the further process of enlargement. And this is the tricky issue. This is the issue that I think that the public relations people in Brussels should think about more, and all member states. If we follow the EU-28, and this is Eurobarometer, it means this is more or less methodologically well done survey. European Union, and it's done before a referendum in UK, in May 2016. 28 countries, and we look the European Union together, practically only 37% support the further enlargement. If we just put the finger on those who practically support the most, are Romania, Lithuania, and Croatia, 64. It means 64% of people in Croatia support the further process of EU enlargement. But if we put the finger on the red, we'll see practically that large countries like Germany, Greece, France, it's Luxembourg. You know, Luxembourg is not in the big, but Netherlands, Austria, practically, it's really the huge oppression at the moment in the public opinion towards the future EU enlargement. And I think this is a serious issue that really requests far more to work with. If we follow what is the public opinion in the EU candidate countries, how they see the preference towards the further process of enlargement, we'll see that, for instance, the Turkey, approximately half population, is still very keen, despite the years and years and years of negotiation. The most enthusiastic are people in Macedonia, people in Albania. For instance, if you see Serbia, it's only 51%. In comparison, for instance, with Croatia, 64%. It means the public opinion in Croatia is more supportive of EU enlargement process than in some of the candidate countries. We really believe this is the process to go ahead for the sake of prosperity, stability, and certainly with the benefits for all states. I can't say whether you can read it properly, but this is more or less the same question, but the source is Regional Cooperation Council. It's based in Sarajevo, probably #1 international organization institution based in Western Balkan. They made a survey. Do you think that EU membership would be benefit, good thing or bad thing? For instance, if you see the Kosovo and Albania, they have 83, 81%. Overwhelming majority of the people are in favor for their own membership. In Macedonia, it's less than 50. But when you come coming to, for instance, Serbia, only 21%. Yeah. Neither good or bad, it means it's kind of the people who either are not properly informed or don't care. But in the case of Serbia, unfortunately, more people think that it's a bad thing than a good thing. I really do think that this is also an area that at least we can help to promote the story of European Union and all the benefits coming from. In general, how they see the future dynamics of the European Union, when they see themselves as the members in European Union. I mean, it's more or less, in the social science, we know that it's a big correlation between those two, and people are not always in the framework of real expectations. In that sense, Kosovo and Albania believe they would be almost tomorrow. I mean, it's by 2020. But as we said, they didn't even start negotiations. It usually lasts for 7, 8 or more years. Yeah. But still, it's good to have enthusiasm because it's crucial for the complex process of transition and all reforms and changes they have to do in their own country. And then we come to the other countries, and again, in the case of Serbia, if you follow, for instance, the orange parts, 26% of them, in Serbia, 32 believe that Serbia would never be the EU member. More or less the same in Bosnia. And this is what is the reflection of enlargement fatigue in the whole Europe. And I think that's kind of the sad process, because the level of enthusiasm should be far more higher for all those reforms that you have to do as the candidate country. It's a very painful process. It's a long-term process. Requires enormous administrative capacity. And finally, consensus in the country. We all know that in the last couple of years, we noticed practically the rise in the level of Euroscepticism in Europe. This is also done before UK referendum, but relatively fresh survey. And as you can see, for instance, how European countries view in a favor or unfavor. In the case of Greece, that suffered enormous economic problems for years. It's 71% of the people there, unfortunately, at the moment are not in favor. Let's imagine, hypothetically speaking, and hopefully not ever, but let's imagine if we organize referendums in those countries. Mm-hmm. It's very sensitive and tricky issue. And if we follow what happened with the trust and favorability of European Union just in 1 year, from 15 to 2016, as you can see, it's a drop of 17% in France or 16% in Spain. We are really facing the troubled period of time. This is more or less the graph that shows what happened with the trust in the European Union in the last 7 years, from 7 to 14. As you can see, it's an enormous drop. The orange one was how it was in the 2007, and this is how it's today. Practically not a single member state that increased the level, except I think Croatia, but because Croatia just joined in, and it's another perspective. But all other countries, unfortunately, faced the significant drop in the trust in the European Union. Some of them, let's imagine in that case, what kind of the percentage of population is really at the moment disappointed. I mean, majority of those complaints are related either with economic situation or with refugees or asylum seekers or migrants. And we follow what happened from 2013 to November 15. Indeed, we have really serious increase of the number of refugees or asylum seekers in Europe. It's more than a million. The green one is the total one, and the blue one, it means the green one is accumulated one, and the blue one is by month. And you can imagine if you have 1 million people semi-legally crossing the border lines, it's something that public reacts in a very specific way. But if we see more precisely who came, who was in that line, and which countries practically shared the main burden, if we call it burden in economic sense, organizational sense, of the issue. On the first hand, as we can see, it's Syria, it's understandable, in Afghanistan, and practically those two countries consist practically half of all asylum seekers in 2015 in any of the EU member states. But when we see where are they and where they asked for asylum, then Germany, Hungary, and Sweden again consist maybe 60% of all those who came. Germany, Hungary, and Sweden. Recently we are reading about a strong Euroscepticism in Hungary, but probably, partly, it's explained by this. It's very hard to be ready, to accommodate, to help people. I frankly speaking, I believe that everybody has humanitarian glasses looking at the poor people coming and escaping from the war. But still, from the organizational segment, it's really complicated that you have to face the 1 million people traveling somewhere, sometimes without any organizational background. But just for the second, if we come back, for instance, in UK, we all talk that one of the crucial issues is the issue of refugees. I can't say whether it's related or not, but for instance, in 2015, we can't say that it was an enormously large number of asylum seekers, because you have open door policy by all those countries, and every single year the number of people are coming and asking for asylum, either escaping the troubled period, troubled areas. And this is what happened with the number of asylum seekers in the last 20 years. As you can see, whenever was a trouble, practically we have a rise up of the number of people who are looking for the better life. Finally, in 2015, as you can see, it's 1.3 million. It's really something that probably requests first enormously well-coordinated policy among all EU member states, plus all those who are on that route and still not in the EU membership. Not a single country alone could do anything. And finally, as a result, we have wires at the borders of Europe, something that nobody believed that it would happen after 60 years of the promotion of the free border and open border and practically no border whatsoever. And those two items, one is the handling of economy and one is the refugee or migrants, produced really such a grave disappointment with the European Union. Again, as I said, let's imagine that you have a referendum in any of those states. I mean, this is something that, in that case, Brexit could be even more important if it's followed by anyone else. And this is the moment when I think the trouble could come.